There is concern about violent acts that have happened in a few of our schools recently. They have left mothers and fathers and aunties and grannies and the public in general feeling worried. Worried for the safety of our children and worried about violent behavior in the wider society that is making its way into our school environment. There are many layers to this challenge, and it will take all of us working together in a whole of country approach to do our part to overcome. With me is Reverend Dr. Joel Cumberbatch, who will be sharing spiritual and professional counsel as he is an experienced teacher, educator, and a spiritual leader who is also the spiritual advisor to the cabinet. And like us, I am sure that you will agree that children live what they learn, and they bring to school some of what they learn even outside of school, the good and the bad. And this means that while school must first and foremost focus on delivering quality education that caters to all, we cannot now get away in these times from being increasingly vigilant and placing greater emphasis on safety and security. You know, weapons do not belong in the hands of children. Yet there are children telling us that they were encouraged by an adult to carry a knife or scissors to school for protection. Fighting must not be the first option for resolving conflict, simply because some of our children have not yet learned how else to cope when they get angry. Perceived disrespect cannot be treated as the trigger for revenge that ropes in anyone who is seen hanging around the person they believe did the offending. Now we have reached boiling point where bad behavior is bubbling over into learning time and created far too many disruptions at the secondary and primary levels. Some strong school leaders, some principals have taken a firm stance on discipline, and they have been able to rein in bad behavior and to successfully manage the level of disruptive incidents at their schools. Now we need to replicate their effort across the system. And yes, it can be done. Teachers and counselors are telling us that it is only a small number of children causing trouble. As at yesterday, the numbers that I received from our Deputy Chief Education Officer, Ms. Beckles, represent less than 1% of the total school population. We're talking about 300 plus children in a school system that is just below 40,000, nearly 37,000 plus. And even though this percentage may seem relatively small, it's still too much. And we have to tackle this at the student level, at the parent level, at the teacher level, at the principal level, at the community level, at every level. And if we are to be honest with ourselves, having fights in schools and sneaking objects in school bags, objects that can be used as weapons, these are not new occurrences. I am sure that many of us can think back to our own school days where people we know, who are now productive adults, were involved in fighting and in discipline and a range of unacceptable behaviors. Those things were not good then, and they are still not good now. But one of the big differences now, though, is the advent of social media. Social media has made anyone who knows how to record a video, text on a cell phone, and post a message on any platform a public broadcaster. And whether the news being shared is completely accurate or not, the rush to be the first to tell all about it means that sometimes eager citizens run to publish bits and pieces that they heard, even with key parts missing and sometimes misleading stories. And this helps to amplify every single incident that happens in schools, in the bus stand, or on the side of the road, or wherever. And being bombarded constantly with negative stories, it is understandable that anxiety and worry, even panic, in the public would be raised. Every single day, there are a lot of good things happening in our schools. Good things led by our increasingly active student councils, by school alumni associations, by private businesses adopting schools. The list goes on. And we have to bring that kind of balance to the way in which we share information.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Good afternoon, Barbados. I believe that we will generally agree that the management and health of our schools is a shared partnership and a responsibility, as the Minister suggested, and that this partnership and responsibility extend beyond the walls of the physical plants to include the interactions, engagements, and behaviors of our students, whether at home, in their immediate communities, or in the wider society. As is the case with adults, there are times when our children will make missteps. However, our role as matured adults and responsible citizens is not to wantonly magnify those missteps and mistakes, whether through social media or otherwise, to create unnecessary tension and panic in our society, or to cause undue harm to those involved. As the Minister rightly suggested, these acts can be destructive, and especially when they are done without verifying the facts or the full context or circumstances. Concomitantly, our children must be nurtured and guided to make responsible and not impulsive decisions which they are likely to regret, but to apply the golden rule in terms of treating others as they would like to be treated, with dignity and respect. Overall, I believe we must return to that community spirit characterized by positive intervention, discussion, common bonds, and a working together for the good of all, which have served us exceptionally well in the past. In fact, there is an African proverb which states that it takes a village to raise a child. This proverb thus reinforces the fact that it takes many people to provide a safe, healthy environment for children, where they can be given the security and skills to develop and flourish, realizing their dreams and goals in the process. May I reiterate the fact that the villages in our context must embrace not only the home and the immediate community where the child lives, but the school, the church, the parent-teachers associations, the business community, community organizations, and of course, the faith-based community as well.
You know, and the partnership with the village to which you referred, Reverend Cumberbatch, is crucial. Recognizing that more support is needed, even within the ministry, to provide our children and our teachers and our parents with the support they need. The Ministry of Education, we have partnered with others over the last 4 to 5 years to ramp up the number of qualified persons in our student services unit. And we have raised that number from 12 to 33, almost triple what it was in 2012. 2020. The Student Services Unit, it deals with psychological and social supports to students and teachers and parents and guardians. What we did is we have recognized that it is not just about dealing with violent behavior at the beginning, but it is also about us giving the necessary supports as our students seek to cope. And so we increased school counselors deployed by the ministry from 0 to 13. 7 of them are assigned to our secondary schools, and the other 6 are assigned to our primary schools, thanks to the funding from the Sandy Lane Trust. I guess they too are part of our village. Some counselors, they do the individual and group counseling in school. They work alongside the in-school guidance counselors on case management, and they facilitate referrals to the Child Care Board and the Juvenile Liaison Scheme and the National Council on Substance Abuse and the Child Adolescents Mental Health Clinic. So their role as counselors is very critical. We in the ministry, we have also moved from 2 to 9 social workers assigned to primary schools. And this is because our psychologists, Ms. Juanita Brathwaite-Wharton, and the other student support services personnel have told us that sometimes to help a child, we need to provide a whole family support, working with the family environment, not just with the individual child. We are also now in the process of building out a program with the ministry responsible for people empowerment, headed by Minister Kurt Humphrey, to allow access to an expanded pool of social workers through his facility. Minister Humphrey's ministry will also be developing, in collaboration with our ministry, what we call a healing program to support grieving students and teachers alike. We recognize that grief is a big thing in the school system. Some have seen their loved ones hurt, killed, and it's not easy then to pick up and come to school and have to deal with all the other things they have to deal with in life. And therefore, this healing program is really meant to help us support our students and teachers through that grieving process. Our ministry also introduced school safety officers since 2019. Now we have 9. And it was a stakeholder consultation, part of that village to which Reverend Dr. Cumberbatch referred. It was through that stakeholder consultations that was held back in 2019 that caused this initiative of school safety officers to come about. These school safety officers, they are assigned to secondary schools that are most in need because of the level of challenges they face with violent behavior. The ministry, we also partner with Parados to provide support to parents and guardians. This year in 2024, 225 students and parents from across 17 schools were engaged, being sensitized to the consequences of drugs and predatory behavior in school attendance and the law and the do's and don'ts of parenting. Of course, a more comprehensive parenting program will be put in place during this school year. Just recently, and I have to say thanks to the Ministry of the Public Service, our ministry, we expanded by 5 our psychologists. You would be surprised to know that since 2008, there was only 1 single psychologist, Ms. Juanita Brathwaite-Wharton, for 103 schools. We are, of course, seeking to address the ongoing capacity issue going forward, as psychologists are indeed crucial to addressing some of the more complex challenges doing some of the diagnostic testing and providing some of the other necessary support that is required in schools. And we have not left out our principals. We will be training principals from primary and secondary, all of them, in mental health literacy next month. That's in November. And this is in collaboration with the Ministry of Health and Wellness and with the Pan American Health Organization. And this training for principal comes after we trained in 2023, 25 primary school teachers as mental health advocates to be there to support the children. And earlier this year, we trained approximately 60 support workers, social workers, counselors, safety officers, school attendance officers in mental health literacy. Now, I know many have been concerned about the physical school security. And I'll be the first to tell you that there is much work that needs to be done in this area. The ministry has conducted security audits of schools, and a draft national school security and safety policy has been prepared, and it is now being finalized thanks to the support of a wide-ranging coalition of partners, which included the Barbados Defense Force, Barbados Police Service, Defense and Security Division, the Fire Service, all the unions that are associated with the school system, our National Student Council, our National Parent Teachers Association, and of course the Ministry of Education. And I have started discussions with the Prime Minister about funding, and we will continue to work with the coalition that I just described to agree on the right mix of people and technology and equipment and natural and man-made fencing and better training in order to address this problem. At the secondary level, every secondary school has some form of security, but it needs strengthening in some schools. And when I say strengthening, it's not only in the numbers of the security personnel, but in proper planning, risk management, training in best practices, and in the use of appropriate equipment suited for school environments. In primary, nursery, and special education schools, the security audit showed that just over half have an appropriate level of security, be it in personnel, in cameras, in systems of practice, in equipment. And we have added some security personnel as well at these schools this year, and we will continue to augment as resources permit. You know, the many layers that education touches means that we must continue to work collaboratively with each other in what I call an all as one effort.
We previously talked about the African proverb, but there's another African concept and philosophy which I would like to address. The word Ubuntu in this regard is very significant. That word by definition means I am because you are. From a philosophical perspective, it speaks to the fact of community and highlights the fact that the individual is intrinsically a part of the whole. That is, the community of which he or she is a part. But in a more fundamental way, it speaks to a people sharing common values and traditions with the understanding that to deviate from those values and traditions is to create an atmosphere of disconnect, disharmony, misplaced emphases, and confusion. This undoubtedly is a reinforcement of the meaning and message of the African proverb previously mentioned, which reminded us that it takes a village to raise a child. But the Christian faith, and others as well, also speak strongly to the concept of unity and the benefits of unity to the individual, a people, an institution, a nation, and the list goes on. Faith in God is an essential part of that reinforcement and commitment. Over the years, regrettably, we have seen a steady decline in the number of our children that attend Sunday school, church, and other places of worship. In fact, in many instances, the only religious education to which many of our children are exposed is that which they have in the school environment, whether through daily prayers, either in full assembly or at the form, house, or year level, or through actual instruction in the formal class setting. Opportunities are also provided for inter-school Christian fellowship and for approved churches to have some level of ministry in some of our schools. I believe, however, that an increase in spirituality among our children and young people is desirable. I believe that the parents and guardians must firstly understand their role in this regard. I have no doubt that the church and other faith-based organizations will continue their outreach efforts with the view of reaching and positively impacting this vital sector of our society.
You know, Reverend Cumberbatch, I think we all know that the circumstances from which a child comes does not define him or her. And that through the right kind of love and support, redemption is possible for children that some believe are lost in a dark and unwholesome place. It is my wish that in the face of this challenge of violence in society, that we not lose sight of our strength as a country united. The problem it presents is not simply about government or ministry or about any one school or set of children. It is about all of us. It is about our values as a society and about the peace and the safety and the security of all of us who are living here on this little rock of 166 square miles. This is our time to show up for our children as the resilient people we are. And all I ask is that God, may God be, by every different name that He is called, may He continue to guide us.